screw that all up. All right.
All right.
Okay, so whenever you're ready to make a blooper, go ahead and fuck up.
Fantastic. All right. This is Zach from the DIY Wealth Podcast, and we're on Jeff's show, Vroom, Vroom, Veer.
Hey!
I think I did that pretty good, honestly. I thought I was going to completely ruin that, but I actually did pretty good on that.
Most people just say vroom, vroom, and they forget completely about Veer. So not only did you not screw up, I think you're one of the few guests that got vroom, vroom, Veer all together. So
all right. Well, I was glad I could rub my last two brain cells together and execute on that flawlessly.
Well done, sir. Okay, I'm going to hit stop. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Are you ready to thoughtfully steer away from your revved up, frenzied, and far too often scripted life? Then welcome to Vroom Vroom Veer with Jeff Smith, where he guides you down the road differently traveled by sharing unique experiences with guests who have managed to shift away from a life stuck on cruise control and veered their way into a more authentic and fulfilling one in all sorts of interesting and kind of remarkable ways. Get ready to Vroom Vroom Veer with your differently traveled road chauffeur, Jeff Smith.
Dustin Heiner, thank you so much for being on Vroom Vroom Veer and welcome to the show. How's it going, man?
Hey, Jeffrey. Thank you so much for having me. No, I'm blessed. Things are going very well. I really just enjoy being able to, I literally don't work. I quit my job when I was 37 years old. Now I get to have fun on podcasts like yours.
Yeah, so me too. I mean, I still have a job, but sometimes it doesn't feel like it because working from home is weirdly fun. Sometimes. Sometimes not so much. But yeah, I mean, I'm definitely in a good spot, especially with where the world's at right now. So talk a little bit briefly about what you're most excited about in your business today.
Wow, that's a fantastic question. So I love business in general. I've always been entrepreneurial.
Okay.
And so I invest in real estate, in rental properties.
Nice.
Then as I was quitting my job, I had people asking me, well, how did you do it? Can you teach me? And so I started teaching people with master passive income, wrote books and podcasts. But what I'm really excited about right now is I'm literally creating a conference. Like we didn't talk about this before, but I'm creating a conference. It's going to be in March of this year. And it's literally a no sales pitch real estate investing conference where I'm just literally getting 27 other expert investors to literally just share and teach how to do this. So it's called Real Estate Wealth Builders Conference, RubeCon for short. But man, I am so pumped because there are so many people that I can help invest in real estate. So that's what I'm really, really excited about right now.
Yeah. I often think that I don't necessarily want to do it now because, I'm 52 and I don't need much more money. But if I were to start over, right? If I were like an 18, 20 something, right? I would seriously consider this. Because that's the perfect time to do it. I think know that. It's like you have absolutely you don't have a wife, you don't have kids, right? You should start making money now, right away.
So much fewer responsibilities than when you're older.
Right.
So I quit my job when I was 37 years old.
Right.
And I would never need to look back. And
right.
I wish, exactly. Yeah. I wish I would have started. So I started when I was 27. Yeah. And 37 quit my job. Yeah. I wish I started when I was like 17, 18. So I'm teaching my kids now that this is what we're going to be doing. Yes. Helping them so they don't have to do it either.
Yeah. I think that's probably like the number one thing you can do for a young person now is to think, just go do your research, however you do it. Is it Dustin stuff, my stuff, whoever? Just figure out what's going on with financial independence.
Yes.
And retire early if you feel like it. But the FI movement is a real thing. And it's, it's like how to start working on your fuck you money, basically.
See, yeah. And I didn't know. I retired. I basically quit my job when I was 37. That's why I like the term successfully unemployed.
Right.
And it's that I found a way to not work for somebody else, but still make money to provide for myself and my family. Right. And that was through real estate. But yeah, so thinking about being retired early, it's great, but I still do lots of work. I love working. Right. I love helping people. I love serving people. I love business. Right. And so it's just a great thing. Like I said, the term successful unemployed is something I just love because it gets people to think you're unemployed and you're happy about it. I'm like, yes, because I figured out how to not work for somebody else and still provide for my family.
And you still work. Right. I mean, you're obviously 100%. Working. Right. But you're working on your own terms and you're doing shit you care about.
I would much rather do, exactly. I'd much rather do the things that I want to do,
right?
Businesses I want to build, whatever it might be, but
helping people,
put my effort and my value into whatever it is I'm creating, as opposed to doing it for somebody else.
Right. Because even if you have a job you really dig, which, let's not take anything away from that. There's plenty of people that like working, but do you want to do that the rest of your life? Probably not. It's just not, when you think about it, at any moment you could get fired and it has nothing to do with you. Right?
That's true.
Yeah. Right. So, okay. Enough about that. We'll geek out about that more in the future because there's tons of things to talk about, things that people don't usually think about that you think about once you get there. Right. Like you, I know not so much maybe because you were running your businesses and you've got family. But for me, we don't have kids. Right. So when I was like 38 and I retired from the Air Force, I had a couple of jobs, but later on, then I decided to start screwing around full time. And there's a lot to think about that. You can't do that really because it's becomes this sad and lonely life. So you need things to keep you busy. Anyway, we'll talk more about that later. Let's get into Dustin. Like, what were you like in high school? Where did you grow up?
Oh yeah. So I grew up in Fresno, California.
Ooh, went to Fresno. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I do.
Dead center of the entire state.
Yes. Right.
Absolutely. So yeah, high school, I liked the idea of business, but here's the thing. We're all taught, and I was definitely taught this, and I was going down this route, that you go to school, you get good grades. Then you go to college, get good grades, but get thousands of dollars into debt, and then take that piece of paper, it's called a degree, you take that with you and you try to get a job with that thousands of dollars in debt. Then you get that job and you try to work for 40, 50 years, and then eventually retire when you're 65, 70 years old, and hopefully live the rest of your life on what you saved up for those 40, 50 years. Right. And so that's what I loved about your podcast is, the veering off. Like I was taught that. And then I realized after
that's good.
It was probably a good little bit of time, but the route that I was going, I would retire at 65 years old. I'm like, my life is halfway or like almost all over. Like I want to not do that. I'd rather do it sooner than that. Let me tell you,
you figured that out in high school already?
It was getting out of high school into college.
Okay, yes,
gotcha. I was
You're thinking about it anyway, right? Okay, good.
Correct. Well, here's the big reason why is my mom and my dad had divorced, and my mom remarried, and my stepdad was entrepreneurial and basically a contractor, had his own business, and my biological dad also was entrepreneurial, so he had his own business. So I had really good examples of people not having to work for somebody else. So that was helpful. Totally. But from there, I still kept working that dead end JOB. So JOB, the reason I call it a JOB, it's a just over broke job because your boss is not paying you enough that you're worth. Now, Jeffrey, let me tell you a quick story that really catapulted me into, like I was telling you, that I needed to be able to not work for somebody else. I wanted to be successfully unemployed. I'll fast forward to the end. At 37 years old, I quit my job. And because I had so much real estate and rental properties, I was like, man, I don't need to work anymore. But let me jump quickly back to what catapulted me. So I was working a regular 9-to-5 job. I was working at the county there in Fresno, a regular IT job, 9 to 5, sit down every day and work an IT job. Right. And I've always been entrepreneurial in my life though. So when I was 13 years old, I had a paper route. Most people don't know what newspapers are, but riding my bikes with newspapers and bags and throwing them at 5 a.m. and banging on garage doors. My buddy in Michigan had a paper route. So I helped him deliver papers on occasion. So that was freezing. The kid job. Yes. Oh my God. It was. I remember the negative 40-degree wind chill delivering newspapers. Oh goodness. California, we never got that. No. So from there, I've always been entrepreneurial, like I said. So a paper route. I had a graphic and website design company, had a skateboard manufacturing business, had a pizzeria, started a convenience store, started lots of business, but at the same time, continued down the path that I was always taught, eventually retire when you're 65, 70 years old. Then I bought a rental property. Too. Right. Okay. Yeah. Right. I bought a rental property and I was like, man, this is really good. Having a one rental property is making me money without working. But this is really what catapulted me into becoming an investor, skipping all those other businesses, but being just investors. So I'm still working a regular 9-to-5 job, and my wife and I started having kids. And by the time we had our fourth child, she was born and I went on paternity leave. Now, paternity leave is where the dad stays home with the mom and changes poopy diapers and bonds with the baby and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, yeah. So about a week or two, I'm off. And then I go back to work after that. And I'm back to work for about a week. And on a Friday, At 3:30 in the afternoon, I get a call from my boss's secretary, like the top dog. And she says, Dustin, would you please come to the boss's office? And I said, sure. And then hung up the phone. And I sat there for a second. I paused and I thought, why in the world would they be calling me to the office? Like, this isn't normal.
Right.
And as I'm sitting there, I'm remembering a couple months prior, before I went on paternity leave, there was some rumors or some rumblings going on that there could potentially be layoffs. And I immediately shook that off. I'm following the plan I was taught. And I've had so much seniority. I'm a great employee. I get raises all the time. So I immediately shook that off. I get up and I walk down the hallway to my boss's office. Now, this hallway isn't very long, but it's actually kind of short. But every single step that I took, it felt like it got longer. The hallway got longer and longer and longer. My feet felt like they were lead bricks. And each step took more and more effort because I started really realizing that this is not normal. I could potentially lose my job. And the weight of everything starts coming on my shoulders. Well, I get through that hallway and then I make a turn and I see my boss's door. His door's closed and I look at his secretary. His secretary looks at me and sheepishly, she grins at me and kind of consoling me with her eyes and says, Dustin, would you please have a seat? She's a super nice lady and she knows everything about what's going on. I know nothing about what's going on.
Okay.
So I go and I sit down in the chair. And as I'm sitting there, I'm thinking about all the thoughts about potentially getting laid off. Like all these years going to school, college, getting a, quote unquote career. If that's all taken away from me, was that all a waste? Did I just waste my life? Like, 13, 14 years of my life in this quote unquote career that's taken away from me. Oh my goodness, that was a waste. But then I started really realizing, oh no, my fourth child is literally 2 or 3 weeks old. If I can't provide for them, put food on the table, does that make me a failure as a father? Does that make me a failure as a husband?
Yeah.
As a man providing for his family? And so as I'm sitting there, my hands get all clammy. My forehead gets all sweaty because I'm just getting anxious and more anxious because the weight of everything just is crushing on my shoulders. Well, the door to my boss's office opens up and out walks a lady, a coworker of mine, with a piece of paper in her hands. She's noticeably distraught, noticeably upset, but she's not necessarily crying, but you can tell her world has absolutely been rocked. Wow. And she passes by me and my boss says, Dustin, would you please come in the office? I go into his office and I get laid off. And remember, this is the government. Nobody gets fired or laid off from the government, but I did. Wow. So I take that layoff notice and I walk down the hallway back to my desk and I sit down at my desk and I realize two things right then and there as I'm sitting. I want everybody to try to realize this themselves. Don't have to go through what I went through. So I realized two things. Number one, I need to be able to provide for my family. I need to put food on the table. I need another job. So I was really blessed, praise the Lord, to be able to find another job in the same county, a whole different department, sheriff's department. It was great doing IT work there. Was really blessed. So that I was blessed to take care of really quickly. The second thing, as I'm sitting in that chair, I realized I need to make sure this never, ever happens to me again. I also need to make sure that nobody has the ability to take away my ability to feed my family.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
As I'm sitting there, I realized that my value is so much more than anybody could ever pay me. And so everybody, you need to listen to this and hear this. Your value is so much more than anybody could ever pay you. And here's how you know why or how. So your boss is only paying you just enough to keep you working without quitting, but not so much as taking money out of their pocket. If you're getting paid for your value, you'd be paying so much more. So as I was sitting there, I made a plan and then I executed on the plan. I knew that investing in real estate was what I wanted to do, but life got in the way. And so I realized
you had 4 kids. You're kind of a busy guy.
Exactly. Exactly.
Right.
I said, you know what? From now on, I'm going to tell everybody I'm an investor. Because what we always do when somebody says, what do you do? They say, Dustin, what do you do? I would say, well, I work for the county. I do IT work, basically telling them my value is in my job. My value doesn't come from my job. My value comes from my God, my family, and myself. And so from that point forward, I literally started telling everybody when they said, Dustin, what do you do? I said, I am an investor. I invest in real estate. It may so happen that 100% of my money comes from my job. That's my part-time job. I am a full-time investor. So fast forward the story. I bought property after property, real estate rental properties that made me $250 a month in passive income every single month. Eventually I had 30 plus properties and I didn't need to work again. So I'll round out the quick story or the story to tell you. I went to my new boss, great boss and everything. I said, boss, I'm laying you off. I'm giving you a 2 weeks notice, jokingly. And he goes, Dustin, what are you going to do? And I said, I really literally don't have to do anything because I own real estate that works for me without even working. So round out the story by sharing, I walked to my car at the last day of work, and I've done this walk 1,000 times, about a 1.5 mile walk, because working in downtown, I didn't want to pay for parking. So this last walk, if you remember that first walk, I was walking that short hallway. It got longer and longer.
Yeah.
This one, instead of my feet being lead bricks,
lead bricks.
My feet felt like I was walking on clouds because I knew I would never, ever need a job again. So I'll pause the story and let you ask questions, but that's how it catapulted me to buy property after property. After 30 plus properties, I literally didn't need to work ever again.
Right. That's awesome. No, thanks for sharing, because I love the story of, it kind of reminded me of, it's kind of a nerdy story that, so when I was in basic training, I had a similar sort of, it wasn't a firing, but the lead boots, kind of like the feet, I had gotten recycled. Okay. So in basic training, I don't know if you've ever heard about anybody in the Air Force, but you don't get they don't make you do push-ups in the Air Force. This was
I've heard
in 1987 or 88. Every time you screw up, you had these little forms in your pocket. They're like demerit forms with that you had to fill out yourself, to saying like, here, Mr. Training Instructor, you write down what I did to screw up. Right. So I don't know. I had already screwed up quite a bit to get in trouble. And I was kind of like on double secret probation already. Right. And then we had this big inspection and I failed it like completely. And that was sort of like the last straw sort of thing, because I was on double secret probation. That's made up. Okay. That's from Animal House. But anyway, they moved me from basically being in my cycle, right? They took me out of one, they call them flights, right? And they moved me to another dorm and another flight with a whole nother group of people that was 2 days behind my current training flight. So then what happens is they make you go pack your shit. So me going up to my old dorm and packing up my shit, I literally bawled my ass off, right? And so pack up my shit, crying like a little baby. I'm 18, move it into the new dorm, and then go back. And now I'm with a whole bunch of new dudes, right, that I don't even know. The next day, I realized how awesome that was, because the new flight was way better. Anyway, that's what I thought of doing that walk, right? That walk of shame down your boss's office. Nobody ever wants to feel that way. So, So then the other thing I was thinking of when you were telling that story was, at this point, like, just a question, were you kind of like already on the thrifty, frugal bandwagon, or were you kind of more of like just spending like an ordinary American consumer?
Definitely much more frugal than not frugal. My wife is much more frugal than I am or was.
All right.
And so she helped me to become more frugal. And that's why I was like, man, there's no way I'm going to pay for parking. That's just taking money out of my pocket.
That's what made me think. Like, you were already kind of like at that age on the I don't need to spend money that I don't need to, because like when people, I don't like to tell people like how much money I have. I'll say I don't need to work, right? I've got investments. I've got my retirement. I don't really need to work, but I'm not going to tell them what that number is. That's not public information, because then they think that I'm rich, right? Maybe I am, maybe I'm not, but that's not important, right? I don't want like everybody to think, oh, well, you should buy all the time, Mr. Moneybag.
Well, I'll let you know a little bit about me. So I moved from California to Arizona, where my wife's from. And we had a rental property here. It's definitely much better being out of California.
Yeah.
So we're living in Phoenix. I had a rental property here. The tenants were moving out. We wanted to move to Arizona. I literally moved into our house currently that we're in now. It's literally 1,250 square feet. It's my wife and myself and our 4 kids.
Wow.
And we have enough money to buy another house, but at the same time, I'm waiting for a good deal. I'm waiting
Yeah.
for something that is going to come, that we really
Now is not a
want.
good time
But
to
being
buy a
frugal,
house. Yeah.
a house to live in, it's
Right.
not the best time. Now,
No.
for investment property,
Yes.
myself and my students are buying lots of properties,
Sure.
but
Yeah.
to live in, it's not the best. So
Right.
we're holding off. But that's frugal me. I'm like, well, 1,250 square feet, it's tight, but we'll make do. We'll have more money to buy another house in the future.
Yeah. I'll tell you my California escape. Because if you're living in California, the only reason you should be doing that is it's either something you like, right? Like the beach, or you're surfing, or you just need it, Okay, then it's worth the expense, sure. But if you're like me, I mean, I never really went to the beach, right? But California is like having two countries when it comes to taxes. It's just like
Sure does.
so expensive, and then they I think the rate when I checked last was on capital gains on investments. It's like 7% at the state level. That's just insane. That's a nuts. Anyway,
Very
so
insane.
congratulations on escaping California.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, so all right, so let's talk a little bit more about like just what life was like even before you got fired.
Okay.
Working your job. So I mean, it doesn't sound like you hated your job, right? You were,
Well, no. So I'm definitely a good employee, meaning I got raised all the time. My bosses think I did a fantastic job, all that sort of stuff. Because
right.
I know that I was raised with a work ethic to make sure I get things done, make sure my bosses love me, and so I can get raises. And just plus, it looks bad on me if I don't do well. So all that to say, I wouldn't say I hated I just hated working for other people because I knew that my value is so much more than anybody could pay me. And when I realized that, I was like, oh my goodness. Well, let me pause. One other quick thing was this is really what catapulted me before to get the idea of something else than working that job.
Another Veer,
reading Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yes. Oh,
yeah.
Okay. All right. I read that book.
Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that helped me to expand my thinking, because we're always taught you work an hour, get paid an hour. Just like you take a test, you get a grade. That's your, reward. You work an hour, you get paid an hour. And then Rich Dad Poor Dad opened my eyes to say
that little box.
There's something else as passive income.
Yeah.
And I realized passive income, what's that?
Right.
I found out you work one time, you get paid over and over again. I'm like, I need that. I need to absolutely do that. And so from there, I realized if I buy one rental property, it made me $250 a month. I didn't work because I hired other people to do all the work. But at the same time, I started realizing, oh my goodness, I don't like working here. I could probably do it differently. I would rather do it differently. I don't want to work for somebody else. If I just scale my business, meaning if I buy one property, it makes me $250 a month. That's $3,000 a year. That's a lot of money. 10 properties is $2,500 a month, $30,000 a year. 20 properties is $5,000 a month, $60,000 a year without working. That's passive income.
It adds up.
I realized, I could actually not work, be financially independent, because I have my properties that make me money.
Right.
So Rich Dad Poor Dad got me down that road with passive income. And that's also the reason why I started Master Passive Income, because I thought, well, what better way to make money than a rental property? So I'm mastering passive income by buying a rental property. Now, Jeffrey, you'll definitely understand this. I buy one rental property because I hire everybody else to do the work in the business, property managers, contractors, roofers. Like I literally have everybody else do the work. I literally don't work. So if you
Nice.
most people have heard the book, The 4-Hour Work Week.
Right.
Well, my opinion, working 4 hours a week is for suckers. I only want to work 4 hours a month. Get this, Jeffrey.
That's
I
great.
maybe work 30 minutes a month on all my rental properties because I have other people do the work.
Right.
I basically just pull up the property management statements, look through it, make sure everything looks good, and then set aside to go back to play with my kids or do whatever, golfing, because I live in Phoenix now.
Right.
Now, that is because of learning about passive income.
Well, yeah,
I
you have to
realized
learn
going
how
down
to
that route.
set up those systems, right? Like the
100%.
who to hire, who to trust, right? All those. There's a lot to know.
If there is.
Yeah. And if you're doing it on your own, then you've just given yourself another job, right?
And on top of that, instead of having one boss, like let's say, because my convenience store, we'll put you a picture of a convenience store. I traded one big boss, my main boss, to a bunch of little bosses. If they don't come into my store to buy anything, then I don't make money. Just like if I don't go to work and my boss fires me, then I don't make money. So we traded it for a bunch of little bosses.
Right.
Not saying that's bad. It's still a good business model. I just love
it's a lot of work though. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The real estate literally does all the work for me now because it just sits there. People rent it out.
Right.
And I don't do anything because I hire other people to do all the work.
Right. Right. And then like people will think like, okay, but how do you, I guess like, what's the steepest learning curve really if you wanted to get into this? Like if you're just like a high school graduate, right? And you're going, should I go to college or should I not go to college? That kind of thing. So what's the first step? I mean, should you just buy a property?
Yeah, no, it's definitely. Well, that's what I did. And I did it wrong.
How did it work out?
I'll tell you how I did it. Now, this is the wrong way. And I will tell you the right way, but this is the wrong way. So don't do it this way. So it was in 2006 when I first started investing before the crash and everything. Okay. And I knew in California, I couldn't buy a property for enough, or I couldn't buy a property because it's so expensive and still make passive income or cash flow.
Right.
You know, all you really do is you figure out your income minus your expenses. So add up all your expenses, your taxes, insurance, property manager, all that sort of stuff. Right. You add that up. And as long as you can rent it out for more, my opinion, you should have $250 or more in passive income. That difference is your money that you put in your pocket to feed your family. So the question is, when you ask the question, it's a great question. If we're going to get started, don't do this. Meaning a lot of other people who teach you how to invest in real estate, they'll give you this way to do it. Remember, this is the wrong way. I'll give it to you again. What they say is you find a property, any property, and you run the numbers. Basically, make sure you're going to be making a little money in passive income, and you make sure that you're going to buy it right, meaning income minus expenses. Then after that, you buy the house. You spend thousands and thousands of dollars to buy the property.
Yeah, there's
then
a transaction fee, right? Right.
Exactly. Yep. Even down payment too. That's a lot of money. And then you spend thousands of dollars to fix it up. You get it all rehab, fix it up. And then you find somebody to rent the property, a tenant. Then you find somebody to manage the property.
Property manager, right.
For me, that's just about backwards. So the question being, if you're to get started, and also what's the biggest hang up? The biggest hang up, it's the easiest thing to do is buy a property. Anybody can buy a property. Right. In fact, I buy a lot of properties off of people who think they're landlords when they're not. And after 10 years of having so many headaches because they didn't do it right, they didn't build the business first, which I'll get into in just a second. Building the business first. Right. They did it wrong. And they're so fed up. Like, just take the property. I don't want any more. Well, thank you. That's great. And then I take it. Right. But here's the right way to do it. The right way to do it is building the business first. Let me give you a quick example of what that looks like outside of real estate, and then I'll jump back into real estate. So if you're going to start a convenience store, candy bars and soda machines, convenience store, you're not going to sign a lease for a location, open the doors, and then put a box of candy bars there on the ground. No, if you did that, you go out of business in 2 seconds. What you would do, though, is you would build the business first. You'd get the gondolas. Those are shelving units that all the candy bars go on, countertops, cold storage, fountain machines, bank accounts, cash registers, insurance, all that sort of stuff before you bought any inventory. Same thing in real estate. We build the entire business first, make sure that it can run on its own, and then we buy inventory. Because a lot of people will tell you your property is your business. No. We do not have it. We should not view it like that. Our business, our real estate investing business, owns inventory. So once we have the business set up, we buy the property, and that's an piece of inventory that we put into our business. And that's how we can easily and quickly scale the business, because we have everybody else doing all the work for you. But let me say one quick thing. I know you're going to probably have some good questions. So I don't pay on any of my properties, I don't pay my taxes. I don't pay my insurance. I don't pay my mortgage. I don't pay for repairs. I don't even pay for my property manager. My tenants pay for all of that. Now, it so happens that obviously the money flows into me out to all of them, but I don't have to get a job to pay for a property manager. I don't have to get a job to pay for the mortgage. No, my tenants pay me. And also I make $250 or more on every property. Some property, like up in 2006, all the properties I bought back then, the rents are literally double from back then. So it just gets better and better.
Right. Okay. So what sort of things do you have to set up in the business? Okay, obviously, you don't want to fix a toilet, right? So that's a property manager, right? So that's an obvious one. Who else do you need to hire in the business?
You absolutely picked the best one that you absolutely need. So a lot of students, so I coach a lot of students, hundreds of students that I've coached how to do this. A lot of times the first thing that they say, oh, Dustin, I found an area of the country, because we invest all over the country. Like literally, no matter where you live, we invest everywhere. Like I invest in Texas, Ohio, and Arizona. I have students in Tennessee, in Indiana, Florida, all that's like literally all over. So what they're first going to say is, Dustin, I found an area and then I found 5 realtors. I'm like, no, stop. Realtors are literally the last people we contact. The first people, and Jeffrey, you hit the nail on the head. The first people that we contact are property managers. This is how people get so messed up. Imagine this. Remember that wrong way that I told you? Everybody said, like, you buy the house, fix it up, spend lots of money.
Out, right.
And then figure out. And then at the very end, you look for a property manager. If you did that, what would happen if, and this has happened to lots of people, they do everything, buy everything, they spend thousands and thousands of dollars, and then they go try to find a property manager, and then they can't find a property manager, or the property managers that are calling are saying, I'm not going to manage that property. I'm going to get shot if I go over there. I'm not going to do that.
Oh,
then you don't have an asset anymore.
Right.
You have a liability.
Right.
So what we do, yeah, exactly. I teach all my students, what we do is, let's say we find a good area of the country to invest that has good inventory, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, right price range, 1,200, 1,500 square feet. There's a lot of criteria that we have.
Yeah. And
we find a good
people
property.
Are moving in, not out kind of idea. Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we can make $250 a month in passive income.
Or better.
So
right?
a lot of criterias.
Right.
Yeah. A lot of criterias. But let's say we find a city that we really like. We pause finding properties. Finding properties are going to come later. Just like when you're going to build a convenience store, you're finding your inventory, buying your inventories later on. You got to do everything else. So you're 100% right. The property manager is your number one person on your entire company, like your quarterback of your football team that makes you money, helps you to, be protected, all that sort of stuff.
Sure.
That's the property manager. Now, other ones that you're going to need, let's say, mortgage broker. You absolutely need a mortgage broker because you need to be able to have money to be able to buy the house.
Gotcha.
You need contractors, roofers, plumbers, insurance agents, inspectors, all these other people that are going to be doing the work in the business, even like title companies, attorneys. There's so many things we need to do first before we buy any properties. And then once we do all of that, then it's like plug and play. You buy next property, put it in. Buy the next property, put it in.
Right. Wow. Okay. See, there you go. That's so much smarter than, because it's easy to, like, especially if you're hanging around California. So the last time, actually, I should say when I was leaving California, my wife stayed at a girlfriend's house for a while because she wanted to finish out her job, and she ended up staying in California like a couple months. Right. And so then I had to go pick her up. Right. And I spent the night at her rental, and I'm looking around and I'm walking around looking at these rental properties, and they're like these like 4-unit, just big building rentals in California. I'm like, wow, just imagine if I could own a couple of these.
100%. Absolutely.
It was like, it's just like a bank. But
well, and
you can't think that way because it's California. So those properties are going to be millions of dollars, right? So that's not probably the best place to start until you have like some capital.
Well, yeah, there are ways to invest in California. It's just a little harder, but I want to share with you, and I love sharing this because it's absolutely amazing. I make money, and anybody, if you buy one rental property, you make money in 6 different ways. I'll quickly go over them. 6 different ways I literally make money. So number 1, passive income. We've already talked about
the
that.
Rent,
income minus expenses.
Right.
Yes, I love that. That's how we feed our family. But we also make money in different ways. Another way is equity capture. Because I'm an investor, let's say it's worth, well, just round numbers, $100,000. I try to buy it for like $85,000. So I capture, $20,000 or $15,000 in equity. That's another way, equity capture. Another way is market appreciation. We just know over time, the market goes up, just even from inflation. The value goes up over time. Another one is forced appreciation. I get in, find a decent property that needs to be, if I put some work into it, it'll be worth more. Put in some money, make it worth more, a pretty painting and all that sort of stuff, makes it worth more by forcing the appreciation, forcing the value up. Another one, love, is tax benefits. Now, when I first started investing, I was like, tax benefits, yeah, that's great. I don't really worry about that. But kid you not, depreciation alone, taxes are taken out. Depreciation is absolutely amazing. Basically, you buy a house and the income that you are reporting to the IRS is seen as lower because a depreciating asset as your property is showing over 27.5 years. You buy it for $100,000. You deduct that over 27.5 years from your income. So it looks like you're making less. Long story short, you buy property after property, you just get lots of tax deductions. There's so many more, but that's another one. The last one I'll quickly give you, and I love this one. It's almost as good as passive income. Remember when I said I don't pay my mortgage? Well, that means I don't pay my I don't pay my principal. I don't pay the interest. I don't even pay the insurance. I don't pay any of that stuff. My tenants pay for that. So that's called mortgage buy down. Let's give you round numbers to help you understand this. Let's say you buy a house for $100,000. You use an FHA loan to buy the house. You move into it, live in there for a year, and then move out because that's a criteria for an FHA loan. But that's only 3.5% down is an FHA loan. It's $3,500 to buy the house. Then you move out. You still have $96,500 left. You move out and put a tenant in there for the rest of the 30 years or 29 years. Your tenant is paying that $96,500 and all of the interest because you're allowing them to live in that property. So that's the 6 ways. You have passive income, equity capture, market appreciation, forced appreciation, tax benefits, and mortgage buy down. It's just absolutely amazing. And on top of that, my rents literally keep going up. In fact, my rents have gone up like 10% every year for the last like 2 years. Right. It just keeps going up. It's amazing.
I like the other thing that we talked about was being frugal. So we can get into that. So, and I'll tell you the story of, I was wasting a lot of time again, trying to come. I kind of, that when you read your Robert Kiyosaki's book, right? Yep. And he had that little quadrant with the employee, the investor, the owner, right?
Cash flow quadrant. Yep.
Right. Yeah. Right. So I'm kind of got stuck on right? I'm just an investor. When I get to the owner thing, I'm like, again, I think in the pre-show chat, I'm like, if I were 20 something or 30 something, I might think about doing all of this, but I've already got my money. So it's like, do I really want to build a business now? No, not really. I don't have kids. I've got a big pile of money. I just kind of want to figure out like what is going to make me happy.
Where to park your money to make more money.
Well, I'm doing the robo investor thing. So that is, I've got like Betterment and Wealth Front are sort of like, I'm using them to work against each other because they can both see the external accounts. I'm waiting for them to both offer me the free upgrade for 100% transfer.
I'll tell you another option might be super awesome for you. So I literally just invested into a hotel. So bought into a hotel, but it's not me doing the work. Now I'm blessed because I have my business and my businesses. I literally have like 4 or 5 businesses that are passive income business. I love it. So I decided I want to do syndication, which means there are other investors who buy either hotels, apartment complexes, 50, 200 unit apartment complexes. They need people to basically invest money and you get an ownership share of the property.
Right.
So what I did recently, I just gave them, I don't know, 30 grand or something like that to buy this house. Now, these 2 hotels, extended stay hotels. Long story short, fantastic deals. I'm going to get 12%. And after about 4 or 5 years, this is 12% every year. After about 4 or 5 years, we're going to exit the property, try to sell it. And I should, if everything pencils out like it has in the past, double the amount of money that I put in on top of the 12% that I made every single year. So all that to say, there's so many other ways that you can do real estate. You don't have to do exactly the way I do it. There's so many great investments out there.
Have you ever heard of Peer Street?
I have.
Peer Street is actually really cool. I'm not all in on it. I kind of had this like epiphany that like, I kind of want to sort of like, before I put money there again, I'm now because I want to retire really soon. So I'm sort of like trying to build up a big old cash bucket.
Oh yeah.
I want to have like 5 years worth of kind of cash, going into not having a job ever again. So that way I've got a little bit more, it's sort of like building a time horizon. If you know what I mean. Right. So
I do.
Yeah. So like if I have that big chunk of cashy, it's not really cash, but it's cash like the Betterment has this thing called the safety net. It's like 15% stocks and then everything else is bonds. right? And you can use it like a checking account, right? So I'm like, okay, that's where I'm parking my cash. It makes about 6, 7, 8% in a good year. And,
Yeah.
and that's way better than most cash accounts. So that's
100%. So
yeah.
I look for other ways to park my money, like a hotel, obviously parking my money in a hotel, buying a property.
Right.
What I love is the cash flow. I love making money that comes in my pocket. So what I literally did with my 401k and IRA, I cashed it out. And I took the penalties,
Okay.
but I bought real estate with it. And I make remember, I make money 6 ways when I buy one rental property as opposed to my 401k, which was kind of eking along.
Okay.
So much better. I cash it all out.
Once you get that sort of like money making machine thing going, you're looking at the numbers going, what the hell am I doing over here?
Exactly. 100%. Yep. And
That's awesome.
But here's the great thing on top of that too.
Yeah.
So people say, well, I can make money in the stock market. I'm like, yes, you can. You absolutely can. But here's also another thing you can think about.
Right.
So I can get insurance on my property. So if it blows up or fire or whatever, I literally have insurance. You can't necessarily get stock insurance.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. You can do like a stop loss and all that sort of thing. You can short it, which is just kind of complicated. But you can't actually go to a company and say, hey, if I lose money, will you give me money? Like, no, we're not going to do that.
I actually checked that out. I tried. I Googled that. I'm like, can I insure my investment accounts? No.
No, you can't.
You cannot.
On top of that,
right.
You cannot go to a banker, any bank. Go to any bank and say, hey, bank, I want to borrow money to invest in the stock market. They're going to laugh at you. If you go to them and say, I want to borrow money to buy a rental property, buy a house. Like, oh, sure, here we go.
Well,
so,
there's
so many more benefits.
The other thing I was thinking about the other day was, like, especially right now, the interest rates are so incredibly low for a house, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I could just pull equity out of my house and stick it in the stock market and make more money.
Sure can.
Yeah.
Yes.
You can.
Yep.
You can, but you can't do that. The opposite is not true. You can't pull money out of the stock market transaction free at a low rate. No, you can't do that. So yeah, there's a lot of benefits to property, real property.
Oh yeah,
totally. So let's talk a little bit about like my house is, I want to get into the frugal aspect of this whole lifestyle.
Sure.
And then also talk a little bit about your spiritual beliefs, because I think that's huge, because you said God, family, right? I like how you put God first.
Amen.
But anyway, so yeah, my house, it was really hard to buy a house my house is like just under 1,400 square feet, right? And it's all single story, but it is super difficult to find one of these in Vegas, right? Because
I bet.
How
2-story and big.
Right. It's like that whole calculation of the builder, right? Of they want to maximize the profit.
Square footage, so they can get $1 per square foot up.
Correct.
And then lots of square feet.
Right. So the only time they build like a small house is when they can't build the 2-story. I think that's what seems like to be true for whatever reason.
Yep.
So like my whole development is on a slope. So like my house its backyard is this huge slope. And hence it's only, they couldn't fit the 2-story footprint wouldn't fit. So I guess I just got lucky. But let's talk a little bit about, obviously you've got tons of money, but it seems like you're still frugal. So talk a little bit about that kind of mindset, because my wife and I kind of like just woke up to that when we were young, that what are we doing?
Yeah.
The whole like spending money you don't have to impress people you don't know or like, right? Maxing out your credit cards. Right. So talk a little bit about your mindset when it comes to just being frugal.
So I personally enjoy being frugal, but at the same time, I enjoy buying things that I want. Like I love firearms. I buy firearms. Nice. I love taking my wife out to dinner.
Yeah.
I love doing certain things, but at the same time, I'm conscious about what I buy now. So let me start with frugality where I started, but then now where frugality can disrupt some sort of things is how much time is it going to take for me to be that frugal? If I just pay somebody to do that, I'm going to be able to make more money over here. So we'll get to that in just a second. Time's the most valuable thing you can ever spend. So I've always growing up, my dad and my mom, my stepdad and my mom, we had like a 2-bedroom house. It was like literally 800 square feet. So I didn't grow up with a lot. In fact, we were really, really poor and grew up. And my wife, her dad was a teacher. Her mom was a stay-at-home mom. So they didn't have much money.
Right.
And so we were always taught to, and plus her parents were boomers. And so went through the Depression and everything. And so they were definitely locking down on everything. But then bringing our families together, I always thought, we didn't have much. So we always fought for every single penny. And then I realized I like the saying that a penny saved is a penny earned. So I also do the same thing. Like, how can I save a penny? Now, fast forward to, let's see, I've always been frugal, but not stingy. Stingy is the bad side of frugality, where you're not generous.
Right.
Frugal is good, but I also like to give. I love to give to my church. I love to give to, just because I love to serve and give. Now with that, now fast forwarding to now, I'm blessed with plenty of money or enough money to where I don't have to work. And at the same time, I start realizing, okay, normally I would change my oil myself because I'm frugal, change the oil in the car.
Yeah.
Or cutting my own hair. Like, I'm frugal, so I'm going to cut my own hair or cut my boy's hair because that's what I do. But let's just talk about changing the oil in the car. If I change the oil in my car, it's going to save me $3, $5 because it's almost the same cost for the oil and the oil filter.
Right.
And if I go someplace else, they're going to do it for me. So all that to say, I start thinking, how much time is it going to cost me versus how much it's going to cost me if I paid money. So round that to say, if I'm going to spend a lot of time, which my time is worth a lot, like I have 5 businesses now, they all make me a lot of money. If not just real estate, so rental properties is, my real estate is one, also master passive income, my conference, I have a couple other brands that I also do as well. But if I put more time into that, I can make more money. So when we're frugal, we have the thoughts of, I need to save a buck, which is good when you're first starting out, but you could only save so much. If you start transitioning now to being, I need to make a buck.
Right.
There's so many more bucks you can make than bucks you can save.
That's true.
So you need to transition out of being frugal. Frugal's good. Don't get me wrong. I'm still frugal. In fact, when I go to the restaurant, I'm still like, oh man, look how much this costs, even though I have plenty of money to pay for it.
Right.
I'm like, oh man, $50 for my entire family to eat. That's a lot of money. Which, praise the Lord, I'm blessed to not have to worry about that. But I'm still, oh man, that's a lot of money.
Totally. Well, I will use my favorite example is when Disney Plus came out. Right. So Disney Plus comes out and everybody's excited because, right. And I think like a lot of people I work with, they're just like uber nerds. Right. And they have to have it. Right. And I'm like, okay, if you really need to have that, that's fine. It's not that much money. But I am perfectly cool with getting like a month at a time. Right. A new show comes out. Yep. I want to binge The Mandalorian season 2. Right.
Exactly.
That only takes a month if you time it right. And could I afford Disney Plus? Obviously. It's not that much money. That's not the point. It's more about thinking about what you're spending and what you're going to get out of it. That's
Let me ask you a question, Jeffrey.
Sure.
Let me ask you a question about your frugality. What do you find yourself being most frugal with? I'll give you examples because you probably take a second thinking. I'm most frugal with consumables, like a toothbrush. I'm like, oh, I'm just going to throw this away and like buy the cheapest toothbrush. Obviously, it's still going to brush your teeth.
Right.
Or a razor blade. Like I'm not going to spend $8 on a razor blade when these Bic ones are like 50 cents. It's like consumables. I hate wasting money on what I don't need to.
I have to think about that. It seems to me like all of our toothbrushes are free. Because we get we every time I go to see my dentist, I get a toothbrush.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. So I'm probably could do better on my. The thing is I only shave once a week, so I do get the fancy blade that I've had for years, but they last forever.
Awesome.
I don't
only shave once a week.
I only change that blade when I bleed, so that's how cheap.
Well, you're similar to me. I always hated. I'm like, even though it's like really like hurting my face to cut. Like, oh, that's 50 cents. I don't want to throw it away. Like, oh,
it's
my goodness,
more than 50 cents. Those are not cheap. But the thing is if you go super cheap, like those super cheap Bic disposables, they suck. I don't want to shave with that. So it's a balance, right? It's a balance of not being, like you said, you don't want to be cheap, right?
Yeah.
Don't be cheap, right? If it's your turn to buy and you're out with your friends, just buy. Don't be an asshole.
Oh yeah,
right?
No, people, we know people in our lives who are stingy.
Right.
They're not fun to be around. They're actually, it's just not good. If you're more generous, it's so much better. But here's the great thing.
It also means that they need help, because that means that they just don't have enough money. They haven't learned the lessons of money's important. It's not the only important. It's not the most important thing. It's just a thing you got to do. And then once you've done it, you don't need to worry about it anymore.
Yeah, and absolutely. And so now, being frugal is great. But then when it starts getting your time, that's something we just talked about. But at the same time, what I love is I love being able to afford the things that I want to buy.
Yes.
Like I said, I like firearms. I like going camping. I like being with my family. I'm not a big car guy, so I don't spend money on cars, but I'll spend money on other things that I want. But it's being able to have the money to buy whatever I want and still be frugal on the other things.
And for us, my wife and I, we're very big on, we spend money on experiences. So she will spend money on travel and experiences. And when we do that, we never go 4-star. Okay. When you want to get a hotel, and now it was funny. I'll tell you as we wrap up, one more funny story from me. So she had all of these hotel.com points thingies, right? And she's like, we should go to a fancy hotel, like a really fancy one. And I'm like, I don't think we should. And she's like, why? Why shouldn't we? It would be free. And I'm like, you think it's free, but then you're in a fancy hotel and everybody expects you to tip like a lot. Right? Every time you see somebody and you're in a 4-star, 5-star hotel, they're expecting $10-20 on every little, like, okay, this guy carried his bags. You got to give him $20. This guy did this. Oh, you got to give him $20. She's like, really? And I'm like, kind of, yeah. And she's like, yeah, let's not do that. So we, instead of doing it like the $400 on one place, we did like 200s or like 4 100s. That's kind of our speed, right? We want to be in the $150 range for a hotel. Sure. Because you're not tipping everybody.
And you don't want to go to the $75 ones. Those are just dives. You're like, oh, I don't want to touch the carpet here, let alone sleep.
Or, if there's an active crime scene, you'd probably want to go want to go find another hotel. Right. So let's talk about how people can best get in touch with Dustin Heiner. What's your favorite URL today? Go ahead and talk about all your stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Actually, I have a real estate investing course. I just love to give this away for free. Just imagine me like your next door neighbor who figured out something that just wants to help you out. So I'll literally give it to you for free. If you text the word rental, RENTAL, to 33777. Rental to 33777. I'll literally give you my real estate investing course, show you how to find an area of the country to invest, how to build the business first, how to scale your business so you're making money to be able to quit your job. I'll literally walk you through all that stuff. You could also go to masterpassiveincome.com/free course. That's all one word, /free course. Rental to 33777 or masterpassiveincome.com/free course. Give that to you. Plus, I have my podcast, the Master Passive Income Podcast and YouTube channel. It's literally just me teaching how to do this stuff. I really don't do interviews on that. It's just me saying, hey, I figured this out. Let me just share with as many people as I can. So I'd love to help anybody and everybody to invest in real estate.
This has been a blast. And I'll put links to all of that stuff and more in the show notes. So you don't have to remember all that stuff. Just go to the show notes, Vroom, Vroom, Veer, or you can do www.com/Dustin Heiner. And I'm going to spell your name. So it's DUSTIN, not Justin, Dustin. And then Heiner spelled HEINER. So in Vroom, Vroom, Veer, the URL is always your name. With a dash. Okay, so it's easy to remember. So thanks, Dustin. This has been a blast. I appreciate you hanging out with me for about an hour.
Thank you, Jeffrey. I appreciate having me on.
All right, take it easy.
Thanks for taking the time to ride along with us on another episode of Vroom Vroom Veer. For podcast info and show notes, be sure to head over to vvveer.com. That's VVER.com. Man, that's fun to say. And we'll catch up with you next time here on Vroom Vroom Veer.